Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and today we are going to delve back into a series we've been doing on this channel for years, and that's taking something in pop culture, taking something in a tabletop role-playing community, and world building around it. And we're going to take a look at a television show that has captured people's attention. But we're going to take a look at the premise of this show. We're going to take a look at Severance, a television show, uh, a thriller, a psychological drama based around a very simple premise, and that is, what if we could create the ultimate technological work-life balance? That when you go to work, you completely forget you've been at work, and instead another part of yourself wakes up, does the work, and when you leave work, that separation happens and you just come home. Your work life stays at work, your home life stays at home. And what is that about? So guys, grab a snack, put your feet up, join us and become a co-host as well. But we will get into how to world build around the premise of the television, Apple Plus television show, Severance. So I absolutely love science fiction, and one of our staples on the channel used to be Future Fridays, where we just talk about science fiction and especially science fiction tabletop role-playing games, which we will continue to do. But today we are going to talk about the premise of the television show Severance. Now, I have to admit that there won't be any spoilers because I've only actually ever seen the first episode. This isn't a review of the television show. This is we're going to break apart this premise, and science fiction allows us to do the scratch the chin, look up in the sky, and go, "What if?" and play with that. And again, to reiterate, the idea of severance is, in this television show, is that people undergo a procedure, a voluntary procedure that gives them a surgical implant that, when they go to work, when they cross a boundary, their outie lives, they call them innies and outies. Outies is your private life, your home life, and if you're an innie, that's where you're at work. And when you cross this boundary, your outside life ends. Your brain just shuts off. You don't remember yourself at work, and instead the work portion of you wakes up and goes to work, and now you just open up your eyes, and now you're at work. You go about your work life, and then when you leave work, your mind transitions into your outside life. Your inside work life remains at work, your outside life is outside. And one of the contentious parts of this show, that's clearly, I'm not spoiling anything. Like I said, I've only ever seen the first show. I understand the premise of the show, by the way, and you can go online and find all kinds of people talking about the different elements and the dark undertones and other kinds of plots going on, because of course it's more intricate than just this premise. But one of the interesting things is that while we love to talk about excellent work-life balance and this dream of being able to separate your work from your life, I mean, how awesome would it be for us to, like, you know what, some of us hate work so much that we would love to eradicate it out of our minds, that you basically close your eyes to go to work, and then when all you have to do is just open up your eyes, and you don't remember, all time passed, but you don't remember doing it. But one of the interesting things is that the personality that is at work never goes home. So when they walk towards the elevators, when they walk out the door of work, they instantly turn right back around and they're at work again. They've never taken a nap. They haven't enjoyed themselves. They are at work basically for infinity. And they don't remember when they've started. They don't remember any of their life outside of work. And it's wild. And it brings to the point, brings to light that for, and this is all by consent, that for us to have a personal life on the outside, you must sacrifice a portion of yourself to be at work. Who the personality you have at work didn't agree to be at work for infinity. Yet the idea of the consent is that, well, actually you did agree to that. And so there is this, would dare we say, artificial personality, but it's really you, that a half of you is at work and can never leave and can never enjoy the fruits of their labor on the outside, and yet the outside person has no connection to work and doesn't feel the losses, and neither feels the gains of work either. And it's a very interesting premise. So guys, thank you very much for being here. I know some of you are just like maybe either tired of the show or tired of people talking about the show or whatever, but we are still going to uh, talk about this speculative fiction and world build around it. Now, for me, what I love about world building, and of course, the television show has already world built this thing in a kind of a modern context. You get the idea that there's a corporation called Lumen, and there are secret high tech things that they are handling in this institution. It comes across as a little bit cult-ish, and even the work that the people are doing in the building seems a bit um, opaque. is the best way I can think of describing it. It's very obscured, and I it comes across as not being, what they're doing is not as important as the fact that it's being kept a secret from them in the first place. But yeah, there's a bit of this show. Now, I can see in a speculative fiction and for tabletop role-playing games, because that's what we do over here, um, how likely would players want to play in a game where there there's a period of time where they must sleep, they must check out, they must turn off, and they don't know what their player character is doing without their permission. And then once the player then re-inhabits themselves, that they have to contend with the events that happened outside of their purview, but it's still them. uh what an interesting way, interesting, like, um post-human, transhuman, cyberpunk kind of thing that can happen. Now, this could be fantasy as well, but if the players are, we've seen a version of Severance done in other ways. An example would be a person who, in a modern day context or something, awakens and doesn't realize that doesn't have memories of their actions before. I think what makes Severance different is that it's very corporate, and there's a lot of consent involved in it. It's not like an individual, like, say, the Bourne. An example would be the Bourne franchise, where in the Bourne Identity and the other movies, that Jason Bourne awakens, but he doesn't have any memory of what transpired outside of his memory. He doesn't remember being an assassin. He doesn't remember being the bad guy. An equal form of this is, do androids dream of electric sheep? Or what is the Arnie and movie where he is, Total Recall. Total Recall is a version of this, where an individual, a spy, assassin, type of mercenary type of individual, uh, undergoes a procedure that erases a part of his memory. And yeah, exactly, Mateo. Yeah, exactly, like the video game Citizen Sleeper. Would players want to? Could you make a tabletop role playing game where you have to make up a character who engages in things, but you don't know what they've done or what they're doing in a present day, and when you as a player play the game, you are now re-inhabiting yourself, different personality, maybe different motivations, but you're also responsible for, or you're connected to, the motivations from the outside. I think it would be pretty interesting because the when we talk about in tabletop role playing games, we talk about like the big bad or the machinations of the evil lieutenants or something like that. Maybe the player characters themselves are the individuals, the movers and shakers that are making things happen in the background, and they're not aware of it. And when the players move and around the world, and there are NPCs who remember them and blink and nod and go like, yeah, you know what we did the other night, and the players are like, I don't have zero idea what we did, but maybe they have to, in this game context, they have to pretend, or they have to go along with it, or they're crossing their fingers and hoping that their other selves are working in lockstep with what the player wants at this time. It could be pretty interesting. Now, in a fantasy, arcane, mystical kind of thing, could players be? Could there be ancestors or spirits, or could this be a little bit of the Lady Hawk syndrome? For those who don't know, there's an old movie, Lady Hawk. It has a really fun premise where um, it's an action adventure sword and sorcery movie where a young man and a young lady are they're in love with each other, but they've been cursed. So during the night, she walks around in her human form, and he transforms into a wolf. And then during the day, he transforms back to human, and she becomes a hawk, the Lady Hawk. And for just a split second, they're able to see each other during these, twice a day, dusk and dawn, during these transformations, but they need to stop the curse. And so, of course, when either of them are in their human form, they are protective of and are served by the animal that is their partner. And Lady Hawk. I mean, and listen, there are many other versions of this. I think Severance, though, takes it to the point of making it like an official procedure where people get to voluntarily, through their own consent to having their personalities, their memories separated. And I think that makes it a little bit more insidious. Mateo says, I could imagine between sessions you roll a series of rolls, yeah, or card draws. Yeah, card draws. I like cards. Or card draws to generate what they have been doing in another unconscious realm or something, like into the Fey realm at night, whatever. Yeah, and how interesting would it be? Like, I suppose you could play this a number of ways. One would be like, you could draw the cards and have, like, this could be done at the table face down. So you roll a dice, you draw the cards or whatever, and they're face down. And then, yeah, Anon says the biggest problem would be metagaming. Yeah, yeah. But a way to surprise us all could be everyone could draw one or more of these cards, have them face down, and that represents what your character had been doing, and nobody knows until the card gets flipped up. And that way, it's not like a game master is purposefully like sandbagging your character or sabotaging them. At the same time, you could also have a way where the player isn't specifically like metagaming, like power gaming their own personality when they're not there. And leveling up could be having more influence during your downtime. I don't know. Disco Elysium, I've never heard of that one, is another good example of where the protagonist has no memory. And I listen. I'm old enough to remember an old video game called Agent 13, which was, it was the same thing. You wake up from, I mean, the game literally has you wake up with no memory, because that's the premise of the game. You're this assassin, spy, agent, or something, and you have no memory, and then you find out that um, someone was there was an attempted assassination, and then you realize it was actually you. And we've seen this before, where the person has no memory, and then they realize, like, wait a minute, I've been the bad guy this whole time. What the hell's going on? But um, now, in the television show Severance, the innie and outie is restricted by where they're at. So there's a physical barrier, and the physical barrier is created because of the memory transition. So the person actually has a home life. These characters, they go home, they have their own reasons or motivations for why they even wanted to have this procedure. They drive to work, and then in the building is another um psychological maze, and they have a difference. I suppose the same thing could be done with, like, Mateo talking about the Fey realm at night or something, or transitioning over into, like, the land of the dead or whatever. And I'm just talking about fantasy version of it, right? Where players fall asleep. I suppose a version of this could be like a dream realm, where it you are outside the game when you're awake, but you're in the game when you're asleep, and you don't really have any memories of when you were awake, but whatever happened to you when you were awake has an effect on when you're asleep. Yeah, he has memory, it just doesn't agree with him. Yeah. That's pretty funny. It's like, yeah, oh no, I remember these things, I just don't agree with the things that I've done. um yeah, you're gonna have a conversation with yourself, like, listen, we're gonna have some ground rules or whatnot. uh weird heady stuff. um some other some other parts of the show Severance, and mind you, I only picked this up from actually physically watching the first episode, but I'm a speculative fiction kind of guy anyway. So, but um another aspect that was brought up in the show is memory. Our experiences and our memories really make our personality. What we go through, and good, bad, indifferent, the things that we um, experience form our personality. And so, having bad things happen in our lives, having good things happen, the friends and family we have around us, our adversaries and enemies that we have around us, people cutting us off in traffic, and so, little things like that make us form our personality. And in the show, when they translate into their innie, their inside the Lumen Corporation, they don't have any memory of their outside world, but the characters still have a personality. They still have this subconscious motivation and things. And so some characters are by the book, others are rebels, some are talkative, others want to be left alone. And it, it there is a each character in the show that has undergone the severance procedure is playing two separate characters, but at the same time, there is a little bit of a reflection, and it makes you wonder, like, if you don't have memory of the good and bad things, then where does your personality come from? Is it like a muscle memory? Do you remember, like, does your heart rate increase um, through panic or trauma, and you remember that? Um, would it make sense for your each character to essentially start from zero when you go through this procedure, that, hey, you're old, you don't have any memory of your old self, so could your new self gain, like, a habit like smoking, or like grinding their teeth, or biting their nails, but the other form doesn't, or something, I don't know, there's all kinds of things, maybe different types of music, heck, having even differing um, romantic relationship types. Spook says, I'm having trouble with making a game based on the split personality idea. Yeah, it's pretty difficult. Like I said, it's just speculation. Yeah, but I could see it working as a possession kind of thing, where you play a spirit or something controlling the character. I'm going to bring up another television show that kind of fits into this role. It's called Travelers. We talked about Travelers before, but it would fit in. Someone on this channel um, has it's been a while actually made a tabletop role playing game about being in possessed or infected by something from the outside. That's pretty interesting. Mateo says the peripheral. Oh, the peripheral. No one ever talked about that show. The Peripheral was a great cyberpunk show that went into the concept of consciousness, but it got canceled. Yeah, that was a show. Well, it did have a definitive. I believe it had a bit of a definitive ending where it did allow itself to go into another. It could have gone into a second season, but it did wrap up in that first season. If you guys haven't seen a Peripheral, it's pretty heady about like a quantum time travel and things like that. Yeah, Spook says, yeah, Travelers would work. Now, the concept of Travelers, similar to the Severance idea, is that you are a personality. Travelers is a time travel show about stopping an apocalypse from the future. So agents from the future come back in time and inhabit the bodies and minds of people in the past. It's a very cheap way of not having to do a lot of time travel and special effects and digital graphics and things like that. So essentially, each character had a normal life here on Earth. Um, one of the little aspects of Travelers was that each of those characters was at a period of time in which they would die, and then an agent takes over their body at the moment they would have normally died, so that it doesn't mess up the timelines. Whatever. But Travelers would work. I mean, you could make a player character. And mind you, this is also done in transhuman, post-human science fiction, where you have a mind, but your body always changes, and part of your character might have to blend with another person's personality. Going back to the like having an addiction or having romantic relationships or having responsibilities, and maybe every time you play your character, you are in someone older or younger or a different ethnicity, a different background, different job, or maybe not every time, but maybe, you know, your character is a spirit, you can't die, but your physical body can die and you take over another person's body. Yeah. Hey, you could kind of see the kitties in the background. But yeah, I mean, all those little permutations in a tabletop game, I think could really work, especially if you're with players that don't mind like some kind of randomness, or they suffer from character building disease. Listen, don't let any. Shh. We all know, because I know I've suffered from this. You get a new game, you're really excited, and you get one of those like character. Really, you learn how the system works, so you can build characters very quickly. Or there's like a digital character builder, and you have fun pushing the levers to make new characters. If maybe a lot of your players suffer from that, maybe a tabletop role playing game where you are always playing someone different, or very often playing someone different, or have the ability to go like possess one person's body and flip into another person's body or something, would be kind of cool. And if each shift brings with it a new set of issues, in specifically in the television show The Travelers, in Travelers, one character does take over the body of a person who is just about to OD. They were about to die, and they take over this character. And the agent is like, I think I'm suffering from some kind of addiction. And one of the other characters is like, listen, yo, wake up. We're gonna have to go get you some illegal drugs to keep you on your toes so we can get this job done. And it was like they were gaming the game, and I appreciated that in the show. I didn't get to see the whole. I think it's like 4 seasons long or something. I didn't get to see the whole thing, but it said okay. So Spook says, okay, got one. All right, a cyberpunk game where you load different personalities to have different skill sets, but they all have different life experiences. Dollhouse. There's a television show called Dollhouse by Joss Whedon, that did the exact same thing. Each character was named after a letter of the alphabet. Our main character was named Echo. There were other characters in there. I think there was a character named Alpha. That was the first one, and all the characters were blank, and they would import into them skill sets, and the higher their skill set, the more they had these strange personality traits. And our main characters in the show were always portraying people with different personalities, um, different experiences and whatnot. Yeah, I could very much. I think that actually is a really good idea, right? Like, you want to be a badass assassin, you end up like putting the chip in your head, or going in out of into and out of the machine that affects your brain, or you carry a device on your hip or something. Yep, Dollhouse. Yep, which be honest with you, it had some. Let's be honest. While we're talking about this, in the back of my brain, I'm going like, there's some dark shit with this stuff. For example, there's a movie called Gamer. I can't believe I'm remembering all this. There's a movie called Gamer, and in the movie, there is a live action gaming series where gamers, like video gamers, get to pilot the bodies of human beings in a death show. And in the death show, um, Sanderson, I don't know about. I'm not familiar with that. His writing on that one. The Emperor's Soul by Sanderson does some similar things. Yeah, and in Gamer, of course, our main character gets convicted. Many people either they are desperate, so you can say there's some consent, but really there really isn't much consent, because most people are so desperate that they agree to it, that they agree to give over their bodies to let other people pilot their bodies and do some despicable things with their bodies. Of course, our main character is highly skilled, and he gets wrongly convicted, and he's in this gaming thing where this kid is using his body in a live action video game, and then eventually, of course, our main character is able to get his skills back and whatnot. And then our main character's girlfriend or wife is destitute, and she gives up her body to be used by they have like an old dirty grognard person in his basement with the dirty wife beater t-shirt on and whatnot, that's piloting her around and doing all kinds of despicable things with her body. Yeah, there's some things that could happen to player characters if this was a real thing. There are some things that could happen to player characters that other people at the table might want to take advantage of, and you could rub people the wrong way. You'd have to definitely. I understand in the gaming community that there are those that are against safety tools, but we would have to have some hard lines drawn about, like, yeah, please don't monkey ride my character while I'm not there, or say certain things happen to my character that were outside the purview of their choices and whatnot. Which also brings into effect, I suppose you could even do the same thing by having players must play a character that they haven't played before. So you hand your character off to the left and things happen, and then later when you come back, you're told about a game that happened that you weren't at or something, and you're like, yeah, Dragus the Dark did these things, and now you're playing Dragus the Dark, and you're like, I wasn't there at that game. And you're like, exactly, but these things happened, and you're still responsible for those things that happened, or at least you're suffering the consequences of the thing that happened. I suppose this could also be a backwards game in which great adventures happened, and the players don't remember what those adventures were, but they have to live with the consequences of what they've done. So they could be criminals on the run. They could be nobles overseeing a totalitarian government or something like that. And the player's like, I don't know what happened. Um, I guess Quantum Leap, the television show Quantum Leap, kind of fits into this, where our Quantum Leap character jumps from person to person throughout time and space, and they have to, put right. Um, if you guys are familiar with Dave Thalmavor, his channel, his RPG review channel, he put out a role playing game, and in that role playing game, you play agents that are basically sliders, and he has a thing in it known as the put right, and the put right is you must put things right and put them back together again. So I suppose this could be like a one shot game, or a 1 to 5 shot game where the players are inhabiting people's bodies in a situation that they didn't create, but they have to live with the consequences thereof. Um, I think the is this magical? Is this technological? Has a lot to do with it, and how much consent is the character having in what's happening outside of their um, perception. Like in Severance, the television show Severance, they agreed to this, but they have no idea what's happening inside the corporation. And then the characters inside the corporation are like, we have zero idea what's happening outside. So yeah, I mean, like for example, like at one point in the show, one of the characters gets like slammed in the face with like a intercom that was sitting on a desk, and then when he leaves and he's just like, my head hurts a little bit, and realizes he's got a band-aid, and he's got a little note left on his car like, oh, you hit your head on a file cabinet, sorry about that, here's a VIP to the local restaurant, have an extra slice of pizza on us, kind of thing. And there might be those things like you're feeling your body and stuff, and you're like, why do my fingers smell funny? And why is there a strange scent coming from one or multiples of my orifices? All right, maybe not that bad. Okay, a little scatological there, but yeah, there could be some like wounds or drugs or diseases or implants that could have happened to the player character that they don't remember having, and depending on how much knowledge the player gets, maybe they wake up and someone's, some indifferent medical person's there is like, yeah, you woke up in a body with like combat implants and a couple of like adrenal glands and boosted reflexes. Oh, off to the side is a bag of your weapons. They're going to need you in the next 15 minutes because you're going to go, put on a mission. And the player's like, I don't have time. Listen, I got questions. And they're like, no, you've just been woken up you've been woken up, Winter Soldier, to engage in yet another assassination. So no time to answer questions. Well, that was an odd seg. yeah. Gonna need some absorbent towelettes after some of these awakenings. But now, depending on what kind of like memory deficiencies, I could see. Yeah, Altered Carbon, the show did that as well. Yeah, Altered Carbon and the post-human transhumanism of like having a cortical stack. In my game, it's called a zipper, but your cortical stack is like is your brain and your memories, but your body is something else. Yeah, new wounds from other users. That was a nice touch. Yep. A desire for that nicotine. You're just like, oh man, who used my body last time? And trying to get your body back. I think you could make some pretty interesting tabletop role-playing game features out of something like that, like a character who's trying to get their body back, and because they just miss it. It's like, hey, you wake up and you're like, okay, my height is different, my gender's different, this person I'm inside of has a bunch of other things going on that I'm not really familiar with. And it also depends on how much we would like to blend the psychological, right? So do we have memories from the person we are inhabiting, or is it a definitive line drawn? Like, no, I am my own personality, but I'm inside someone else's body. Or is there a like, oh, this individual does have a strong relationship or hatred towards this other person, and I now have to live out that, 30% of their life versus my 70% of my badassery, and the two are blended together. I think there would be a great cause for both of those, and I think it would be pretty interesting. Um, yep, Eclipse Phase. I was going to bring that. Uh, there is an Altered Carbon tabletop role playing game. There is one. To me, the rules are a little bit. They are very opaque to me. It did have a Kickstarter, and I did fund it, but the rule system didn't really appeal to me. And I like the dice system too, but it just didn't appeal to me. Anon mentions that Eclipse Phase is great for that, or at least would be if the system wasn't a disaster. Yeah, Eclipse Phase suffered from its what's the term? No, I was going to say no good deed goes unpunished. It's the gaming sci-fi gaming world of Altered Carbon and Eclipse Phase and these transhumanist, post-humanist games where you can switch minds and bodies is complicated enough that the rule system made it twice as hard to get into. It's a percent. Eclipse Phase was a percentile system, roll high, not over system, and they eventually overhauled their own system, but I think it was just too late. And it's got some brilliant layouts, some brilliant concepts, but yeah, I think it would have been better if there was a way to make the game system simpler, the mechanics of it simpler, because explaining it. Listen, you guys, you're already mentioning Altered Carbon and Eclipse Phase. Everybody that's come across those games has been like, this is brilliant and no one's going to want to play it. Right? You have players that are like, it's very difficult to make up a player character when you let them know that your body is not really something that you're going to be in permanently, and even your mind can be edited. People can steal your memories. You can, heck, you may not know, but it be involved in a mission where you yourself decided to delete your own memories of a thing to keep that information safe. But then the adventure is you uncovering the fact that your memories were deleted, only to find out you did it to yourself. Circling back to Total Recall and some of these other shows and whatnot, because in the show Severance, there is a plot point that they bring up in which someone wakes up inside Lumen, the corporation, after undergoing the severance procedure. And that character is like, I want to leave. I don't like the fact that I'm here. And I don't like the fact that I'm going to be at work forever. And keeps trying to leave, only to walk out the door and instantly walk back. Because remember, you only have memories inside. You have no perception or memory going outside. So if you literally, because there's no locks on the door, you could literally walk out the door, and the minute you unlock the door, you walk right back into the building from your perception. But the character doesn't want to be there. But when they leave the building, the person's personality is like, why do I keep leaving the building? I'm going back in because I need to, because I'm trying to prove a point. And it's a very odd situation where your own personality is like, I don't want to be here. And the other personality is like, no, 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 you're going to be here because I want to have my own personal life, and my work life needs to get separate from my personal life. My life, what is it? It's the work-life balance. So life needs to stop happening at work, and work needs to stop happening at life, and separate the two, which I suppose would be it could be kind of like the players are defending the life of an NPC, but that NPC is them. So their non-badass life is just a regular person who's trying to just live their own life, and the player's like, okay, I've got from 10:30 tonight till 6:30 in the morning to engage in these activities before my real person has to go about their normal personal life. And here we go, and we go off like saving the world, only to have to come back and clock out, and then and maybe as a player, you're like, I just want my, you know, settled down, married, boring NPC, life to go on, and they're not allowed to know about what's going on, which would be I suppose it could be kind of fun to like um to play the game of not letting your normie personality know about your badass personality. Where your normie person's like, why does my jaw hurt? And I've got 2 bullet wounds that are like barely healed. What the hell happened here? Whereas you're just like, I'm flipping off of rooftops and I'm hanging on, by one hand off of helicopters, shooting automatic weapons and backflipping off of rooftops and whatnot. And your normal person's like, I just want to play catch with my kid on the front lawn or something. Now, Anon says memories have location, which is why you sometimes forget why you went into a room, but remember when you go back. Yep. Yeah. I wonder, I mean, we could mechanize all this kind of stuff, right? Like, you must pick on your character, you must pick a person, a place, and a thing you have an emotional connection to. Reminds me a little bit of Wraith the Oblivion, where you could have an emotional connection to something, and one part of your brain remembers why you have a connection, but the other part of your brain doesn't remember anything, but they're having the emotional reaction to the thing. Like, maybe there's a Rubik's Cube and you hold the Rubik's Cube and you start crying, and you're like, I don't understand why I'm crying, but something traumatic must have happened, and I know it's, and of course, mechanically, I heal 3 hit points with it, whatever, I move up 3 wound levels while I reminisce over this Rubik's Cube that I don't have a memory of. But then your other personality is like, oh yeah, I remember, because that was a Rubik's Cube that was left to me, because when I was a young kid, my best friend passed away or something, and he left me his Rubik's Cube, and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? You could have a whole storyline about it, but it would be pretty interesting to have these connections, but they're not filled out yet. And through the course of play, maybe like Jason Bourne, right? I've got all these badass statistics on my character sheet, but I don't know why. And let's figure out how the hell I got to that point, and start filling in the blanks. And that, the fill in the blanks could be the goal. It could be like experience points. It could be like, getting better. Your character gets better when they start to fill in the gaps, get the puzzle pieces and whatnot. I could even see, like, at the beginning, you guys were talking about like drawing cards or rolling on a random list or something, and they could be above board. So instead of trying to fight the metagaming, there could be these aspects that are left there that are not assigned to anyone yet, but as we play, a character can grab one, attach it to their character, making that, going from a metaphysical to a reality, attach that to the character, and now that character has that memory, has that background, is attached to that character, and then that can also be like, hey, I can use this aspect or feature, trait or something that we have now reconciled with the character's background, and now it becomes this makes me a better person. Spook says had to step away. Yeah, little narrative prompts that you get to add to your character. Yeah, absolutely. Says had to step away. So if it was mentioned, ignore me. There are several scenes in Moon Knight. We didn't mention Moon Knight, where he keeps swapping between badass and boring guy, but it's all cutaways to the normal guy being chased. Yes. Yeah. Moon Knight was pretty cool. Moon Knight, driving in a truck, and you wake up, you're in the middle of a chase scene with a gun in your hand, and you wake up in the truck driving away from like helicopters and motorcycle riders, and guys chasing you down the road, and you're like, what the hell's happening? Yeah, Moon Knight was pretty fun. Pretty fun. I I'm still thinking about the metagaming part of this, where it's like too much knowledge and kind of breaks the system. But I but like but Mateo says, like, you know, you could have narrative prompts that are attached to the character, and I think that'd be kind of cool. Like, for example, um I think a powered by the apocalypse style game would work with this. And what I mean by that is um the that type of gaming style, you get a benefit if you complicate the life of your character. So when you roll the dice, you can either get a pass fail, or you get that yes no if and or buts kind of thing in the middle. Although I think I actually have to add two more words to my yes. I think it's going to be yes no when then if and or but. So but anyway, you get a mixed result, and by complicating the life of your own player character or other people at the table, you gain benefits for doing such a thing. And I think it would work best for that, so that yes, you might be metagaming, but you may also be complicating your own life. Like, for example, you may want to have an NPC that hates your guts, complicating an investigation simply because you know it's going to benefit you later, right? And so I think that could work very well. Also, there's a game that I have known called Dream Chaser, and in Dream Chaser, it talks about creating the world that you're in. Basically, Dream Chaser it's not a game about dreams, although it very easily could be. But what happens is you ask all the players about things they would like to have in the world, and they aren't specifically for you and your player character. What you're doing is you're giving them to the game master. You're like, hey, we'd like to have dragons, we'd like to have telephone calls, we like to drink coffee, whatever, right? Spaceships, Victorian era courtly dinner balls or so, whatever. You could have all kinds of things. You mix it up in a bag, and then the game master can pull out those prompts to engage more into the world, so that it's while I might have some ideas, you guys would surprise me with whatever you wanted to see in the world, and then we all engage in it together. And I think something like that could like preempt the metagaming part, where it's like, no, this isn't specifically for me. Maybe the NPC that hates a player character's guts might not come at me. Maybe that NPC might arrive in someone else's background, and so it could surprise them. And then I'm invested in it because maybe I'm the one that introduced that into the game world. Yeah, the metagame is a mess for sure. You could also do a changeling the dreaming. Ooh, changeling the dreaming thing, and sell off parts of your soul for traits to survive. This could be like adding and subtracting dot to skills. Yep. Um, I suppose you could have a split character. So your character is split down the middle. Let's have odd numbers. So you can make up something. You have 7 points. Yeah, so, okay, who dreamed the hungry werewolf? Yeah, damn it. Which mofo at the table? Someone's like, I'm going to get another slice of pizza. It wasn't me, you know. But yeah. I mean, let's say you can only have 7 points split between an attribute and one attribute. Sorry, let me go backwards. For those who don't know, there is a role playing game called Changeling the Dreaming that is a White Wolf game, and there's also a Dark Ages version of the game that I have. I don't have the modern one, but in Changeling the Dreaming, you you have a character that's split between normal day reality, today, modern day, walking the streets, going to work, whatever, and a part of you is in the Fey realm. And based on your character, you can you can fluctuate between reality and the dreaming. the Fey world, and which one is real for your character. And so your stats can alter based on how much you get drawn to one world or the other. So the more you get drawn into the Fey world, the more you start to forget about and ignore things and detach from the real world. And that's where you can make um you, you can make what do you call parallels to people that have like um mental deficiencies or neurological issues or homeless or daydreamers or what are people who live, I'll say, like outside the social norms, lines of the social norms, things like that. Whereas if you come in reality, you start ignoring your creativity. You start ignoring your impulses. You start ignoring the dreams you had of making music and living out in the woods in Alaska or something. And you're like, let me get a real job, right? And but yeah, um, yeah, in Dream Chaser, like you comment here, Spook, you're like, okay, who dreamed the hungry werewolf? Dream Chaser is based on that. Basically, you have a they ask you, I think it's a set of 3 to 5 questions, and okay, so if I remember correctly, you get asked what are some themes you want to go through, and themes could be something like revenge, romance, um, heist, dark and light, very overview, like comedic elements or grim dark or whatever. You could have those kind of things, and then you start to focus down, and it's like, okay, what are some scenes you would like to see? Like, oh, I'd like to have a conflict on top of a crumbling bridge, rope bridge or something. Or someone else that says, hey, I would like to have a competition, a baking competition, or things like that. I would like to go one on. I'd like to see a duel with a dragon or whatever. And you put that all together in a basket, basically. And the game master goes, okay, thanks you guys for giving me these things. And then they build an adventure around it. So kind of cool. Was thinking of Changeling Dreaming or Changeling the Lost. Same idea though. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's right. Changeling the Dreaming is one. I can't remember which edition is which. Changeling the Dreaming, Changeling the Lost. I think the Lost came in during the Requiem era, and then I can't remember what Dark Ages is. It could just be Dark Ages Changeling. Just like there's Vampire the Dark Ages. I think it might be Changeling the Dark Ages. But yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, the last thing I'll say, let you guys get out of here because I just like speculative fiction and whatnot. Um, this show Severance is pretty wild. In it's like a slow burn, but it does keep you on the edge of your seat because it's not that there's like gunfights and whatnot. It's basically we viewers of the show are know that there's a separation between the person at work, the lumen innie, and then the person outside of work. And we're looking at them screaming like, this isn't a good idea. And yet we are engaged in how they're finding out what their life is like, both inside and outside, because they're revealing each the choice of going through the severance procedure means that there was a motivation for them to do it, and then what is their motivation while they're in work that has no memory of the outside, and the two are blending together. So we're learning their personality through how they're acting inside, even though there's no context to what's happening through the outside. And then on the outside, like for example, I think one of our main characters had there was a traumatic death, and we often hear a very common trope in television and movies is, I suffered a loss, I just want to go to work to forget about that loss. But the problem is, I'm like beating my own head, like, don't, oh, that's so, you don't want to do that, because when the character who's very depressed and suffering through this loss goes to work, he don't remember any of this stuff. So the minute he gets off of work, it's as if it never happened. So he's just going right back into his depression again. It's not like work is allowing him to be distracted about those thoughts and interacting with other people. No, it's just a shortcut. It literally, all those emotions just stop at the elevator and then come right on back when he gets back in the elevator and come back home again. It's weird. I'm like, that didn't solve anything. If anything, it will extend his um extend the loss that he suffered and the psychological trauma 8 hours a day every day longer, because at work he doesn't know, and there's a really cool subtlety to the show, because you don't understand why at one point his nose is kind of running and he's got a tissue and he's like, what is this about? And he doesn't realize that prior to that he was in his car crying with a tissue, and he put the tissue in his pocket. When he gets in the work, he's just like, what's with my face? Like, what the hell's going on? And it's really interesting. I would love to know if there would be a gaming group that would love that, like, to have these little traits thrown in, and the player character has to uncover why it is that they had those traits. Yeah. So yeah, some drink to remember, others drink to forget. Hell yeah. Anyway, a very mind bendy, very weird. And of course, we love tabletop role playing games. Like, of course, the idea is like, how would you even implement something like this? Like, wow, just trying to implement it in the first place would be so daunting. And I think like I said, there are ways to play with the meta narrative. I think at a certain point, maybe it'll be a tipping point where, like, you could have like 1 to 3 game sessions, and after a certain point, basically everything is revealed and it's on the table, and there's no way to add a new feature to it, unless of course we are we're doing the body switching, mind editing, mind switching. Like, it would be like the idea that you could have different skills, like, okay, I've got martial arts skill, but to use my martial arts skill I also have to introduce a new personality and new background, would be kind of cool. I forgot to mention that the role playing game, and I can't remember the name that he gave it. The gentleman, every player character is infested with something. So some were infested with like a disease, others had nanotech, others were infected with like an alien spore or insects or an ooze or whatever. And your bodily capabilities were related to what was infecting you, but you had to grab other people to do it. And so your physical form was always different because you had to grab innocent people and infect them. And like, your infection score was based on how much you blended with the human being that you were taking over. It was basically like an Invasion of the Body Snatchers kind of game. And but you played the body snatcher, not the human. You played the snatched body. And I'm like, that's kind of interesting. Of course, you could do things like spew out swarms of insects, or spit out nanotech, or like let let spores or some kind of ooze come out of your orifices and things like that. Anon says, I think the mystery clues you brought up would be the way to go. I think either that, or what was mentioned before, a deck of cards that would be related to the game. And the deck of cards could be, I don't think they need to be as mysterious as like a tarot deck where it's extremely interpretive, but I don't think it needs to be very specific either, right? Like, you could have like a 60 deck cards. Hell, you could design a deck of cards for like Drive Through RPG or something, or what is it? Drive Through Cards. Anyway, and design a bunch of like prompts, like NPC cards, um memory cards, things like that. Like one could be a vacation card, another one could be a secret mission card, another one, could be a um, dedicated. Maybe you have a dependent, an NPC that's a dependent that you're taking care of, and each time you draw a new card, it's your new, hey guys, I was on this mission, and the human being that I was inhabiting, it doesn't have to be a human being. Uh, oh, Memento. Oh my god, Memento. That movie is my jam. That movie. Oh my. Um, Premise: a guy has long-term memory but can't make has problems with short-term memory, and the entire movie takes place going backwards because if he leaves his hotel room or runs around the corner or drives his car somewhere or goes to a diner or wherever, he doesn't remember how he got there. He doesn't remember why he got in the car. He doesn't remember why uh it's so bad that if he leaves his motel room, he doesn't remember his room unless he's got the key in his pocket, and he doesn't remember what room he's in, and he's getting phone calls that he can't remember, but he's having conversations with people, and in the middle of the conversation, he's like, I don't remember. It's just weird. It's like, it's a wild, that movie is brilliant. It's a early Christopher Nolan. If you're a Christopher Nolan fan and you haven't seen Momentum, you haven't done yourself. You are doing yourself a disservice. You got to see Memento. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for letting me just pontificate on this and have some fun. Um, yeah, this is just a fun concept. I think Severance is an award-winning show. Um, yeah, it's just, oh yeah. Drive Through RPG is raising prices on black and white books by 50%. So I wouldn't be surprised if prices on cards went up as well. Yeah, wow. Wow. Hide and Seek with De Niro and Dakota Fanning sounds like one you should watch if you haven't. Hide and Seek. All right, all right. Let me see. Hide. 2005 film. Come out, come out. Whatever you are. Ooh, that's, man, she looks young. Yeah. All right, okay, okay, all right, okay. Is that a horror movie? Ooh, that's bad. I don't mind horror movies. Yeah, I just don't like body. I'm just not a body horror person. Yeah, w- I don't like eye violence. I don't like body parts where they shouldn't be. Um, just the whole concept of the human centipede just freaks me out. Like, oh, oh. I mean, I love the stuff in like role playing games like Call of Cthulhu, but I hate it at the same time because it's like I feel that like oh, it's that cold pinprick up my spine. Oh, oh, yeah, human centipede. Oh, it's the worst. People's all those images that people have of like, oh my god, like eyes being like sewn shut or something, or like a photographer will put like an eyeball on like the palm of a hand or something. Like, yeah, it's a psychological thriller. Okay, I love, I miss the old classic psychological thrillers. I miss them. There were some really great ones back in the day, 80s, 90s, early 2000s ish, and this that looks like one of them. 2005, yeah, yeah, that sounds like one of them. So anyway, guys, you guys have a great one. Thank you very much for being part of the show. I don't know what we'll talk about tomorrow, but it'll be something. uh, but whatever case may be, it will always be interesting with you guys who make this small corner of the interwebs, amazing and makes me look brilliant. So I appreciate that as well. It makes me look good. So yeah, this old grognard appreciates it. So guys, have a great one. Thank you very much for being part of the show. Really appreciate it. Enjoy your gaming experiences and please share them over here as well and let people know about it. So have a great one. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace and tranquility. Bye. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.